Also, please can you ensure that your mobile phones are switched to silent, and councillors, can I please remind you to speak directly into the microphone and make sure that your card is pushed firmly into the console. Anyway, so now we move on to, since there's no members of the public, move on to the main items of business. First of all, minutes. The committee to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of September, which I believe are at the back of the room. Right. Kimberley, are there any apologies for absence being received?
We have apologies for absence from councillors Blishin, Dixon, Edmonds and Michaela Gray.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest that have been received?
No declarations received, Chair.
Fiona, are there any questions received from members of the public?
None, Chairman.
From members?
None, Chairman.
All right, okay. Table, can we start with you, Chris? Lewis, excuse me, thinking of him.
Lewis Jones, Planning Solicitor.
Beth Howland-Smith, Development Manager.
Chris French, Area Team Leader.
Philippa Staddon, Planning Officer.
Got to be any Vice Chairman.
Yes, you.
Chris Berry, Interim Head of Planning.
Kimberly Sohn, Clerk in the meeting.
Fiona Cameron, Democratic Services Manager.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, let's move on to the next item. Are there any relevant updates to government guidance or legislation, Beth, that we ought to be aware of?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, on the 1st of October, members may be aware that the MPPG was updated in terms of the design chapter. It's now called Design, Process and Tools. Alongside it has been published the National Design Guide, which basically seeks to build upon the advice previously contained within the guidance and introduces the concept of 10 characteristics that contribute to good design. Members can be assured that this really just consolidates what we already practice as we strive to seek and secure high quality development. So there will be no change to the content of the reports tonight. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Right, can we move on now to the next item, which is the applications, which is not subject to public speaking. There was a site visit to a particular site on Monday, I believe, Monday afternoon, Pendragon Hall, 13 Gardeners Hill Road. And the application is, in fact, WA 2019-0953, Pendragon Hall, 13 Gardeners Hill Road, Farnham, GU104RL. The proposal is to change of use and alterations to the existing dwelling, including construction of a lower ground floor and to garage staff accommodation outbuilding to provide 6 dwellings, the erection of a bin and cycle store, new parking and turning area and associated works as emphasised by the access plan received on the 29th of September 2019. I believe you're going to present the proposal.
Thank you, Chairman, and good evening, members. There are 2 verbal updates since the writing of the report. Firstly, we've had a consultation response from Natural England, who've confirmed that there's no objection and that there would be there would be no significant effect on the Wilden Heath Special Protection Area. Secondly, there's an update to the recommendation to include the submission of an approval of a landscaping scheme to include but not be limited to details of the boundary hedge within the gardens. This would form condition 13 of the recommendation. I'll now run through the details of the application. This plan shows the location of the site outlined in red here. It's currently occupied by a large single detached unit with access onto Gardeners Hill Road. The site is opposite land currently being developed for 43 units known as Baker Oats. So you can see the land down here is that land you'll probably be familiar with. The site lies within the countryside beyond the Greenbelt. The access on the northern part of the site actually falls within the developed area boundary, which is up here, but the rest of the site is within the countryside. This is the proposed block plan. You can see Gardeners Hill Road on the left here to the west. Additional parking is proposed within the site, which would be cut into the bank in the area that I'm highlighting here. And you would also have a new building which is proposed for the parking, for the bin store and the cycle store, which is just here, which I'm highlighting. The main dwelling is to the south, and you've got a building which includes a first floor flats currently, which is proposed to be converted to 2 units, with 4 units being proposed within the main building. These are the proposed side elevations. You can see that the changes are limited to the area around the basement. So if you look at the existing elevations compared to the proposed, the main change is down the bottom at the lower ground level. This is the proposed and existing front elevations. There's very little change in terms of external appearance to these elevations. The main area which you can see is different is there's an additional window opening at first floor and a change to the entrance. But the building, yes, stays substantially the same in appearance as viewed from the front. These are the existing and proposed rear elevations, which is the elevation that changes. You can see the basement level that's introduced on the bottom here, and you can also see the gardens are divided by a hedge, which is being proposed. This is the coach house elevations, which is the building which is adjacent to the main building. The first floor would stay as it is, as a 1-bedroom unit, and they would introduce a new 1-bedroom unit on the ground floor, with the change being, or the noticeable external change being the removal of the garage doors and introduction of windows and a small front porch. This shows the bin and cycle store with parking, which would be next to it, which is cut into the bank as you enter the site. These are the proposed floor plans for the main house. The basement level, or the lower ground level, is shown at the top, with access into the gardens from the rear. And at ground floor level, you've got the kind of kitchen, living areas for the 4 units. They're 4-bedroom units. So you can see here the division into 4 separate units, each with 4 bedrooms. There's some changes to the access arrangements which are also being proposed. You can see here there's a footpath which is introduced and a link to the Baker Oats land beyond. So there's a crossing point introduced, and visibility displays are shown on this plan. The County Highways Authority have reviewed the plan and provided detailed comments on the application, recommending a number of conditions, which are all within the officer's report, one of which requires visibility displays to remain free from obstruction. And these are some photographs from the site. So you've got the main building on the right-hand side here, looking at the top left photograph, which would be divided into the 4-bedroom units. And then you've got the smaller building at the end, which would be divided into the 2 one-bedroom units. And you can see there's a change in level of the land, with the level being higher to the left on the photograph, and then dropping down, which enables the basement area to be provided. And also you can see on the top left-hand photograph is the area where the bank would be cut into to provide for the additional parking spaces and the cycle refuge area. This slide shows lists the main determining issues. With regards to character and countryside and surrounding area, the application converts the existing building and would be acceptable in terms of character and appearance. In terms of residential amenity, the application would not harm the amenities of neighbouring properties and would afford an acceptable level of amenity for future occupants. Looking at parking, access and highway safety, the County Highways Authority confirmed there's no objections subject to conditions. Furthermore, the level of parking proposed is acceptable. Therefore, subject to conditions 1 to 12 in the agenda report and condition 13, which was provided as a verbal update at the beginning, the application is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. Right.
Evening all. Site visit yesterday. Chris will recall I expressed concern about the conifers planted on the outside, on the highway side of the boundary, because they will, as night follows day, grow bigger and bigger, and they will, unless they are well clipped, they will intrude and cut down on the sight line. When I drove my car out, had to be very careful, particularly to the right uphill, because there's not a very long sight line, and a van did actually hurtle around the bend. So that access and sight line is a bit of a concern to me, and those trees in particular, which are all recently planted, I think are going to pose a major hazard. And personally, I think they should be not there. Anyway, I don't know whether Chris has had any chance to think about that further.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Hess. I've looked at that further since the site visit, and the County Highways Authority have looked at that on the ground as well, and they've recommended condition 4, which I'm satisfied deals with that issue. So particularly the kind of end part of that, which talks about the layout being in accordance with that approved plan, but also thereafter the visibility display is permanently kept clear of obstruction between 0.6 and 2 metres above ground level. So it would be a matter of making sure that those new planting were maintained in accordance with that condition. I did also run that past our enforcement team this morning, and they were happy with the enforceability of that element.
Please do.
Well, so supposing permission was granted and all of the units are occupied, presumably the, I don't know whether they're leasehold or freehold, but the responsibility will transfer from the current owner to a management company, or is it a highways responsibility to keep them cut back?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, that parcel of land does fall within the actual highway, so yeah, it would be a highways responsibility to keep it cut back. Thank you, Chairman.
So we can assume then that those trees will get really overgrown on that basis.
I don't think you can assume that, Councillor. I think you have to believe that the condition will be strictly applied. Does the councillor wish to make comments? Councillor Corbett.
As ever, I don't really know where to start, but I think we're between a rock and a hard place on this one. As I sit here, there are 5 eyesores in the Bourne caused by the fact that we gave planning permission that hasn't been developed according either to the permission or has fallen into disrepair since. And this is one of them, believe it or not. I put this down as an eyesore, even though I'm sure other people won't see it quite as I see it. Because I remember this before. I remember the cottage, I remember the land. And I remember when this was given permission, we all had high hopes that we would have a nice large house and we'd have landscape grounds, and we haven't. In fact, I was quite grateful when they planted the odd fir tree. I couldn't care where it was. I thought at least it's a tree. When we had a call for sites for the neighbourhood plan, the applicant here didn't put in any of the land for consideration, and in fact moaned at us at the very first neighbourhood plan examination that we had drawn the boundary and put her land outside. Well, unfortunately, I have many gifts, but mind reading isn't one of them, and I had no idea that they wanted to develop this site in any way. It has permission, as we know, the blue bit for 3 houses, which got through on appeal, and we have here an existing building. I don't like what they're intending to do on this site, and I have read the landscaping condition and hope that that will at least improve the situation from the outside of the site. But I have to say, we have 2 issues in the Bourne which are caused because the landscaping condition has just not been enforced, despite my flagging this up. And I feel so often that we let things go through because we assume that the landscaping condition will at least soften, ameliorate the situation, and very often it doesn't. And, from the residents' point of view, I know it's a great disappointment, and from ours, this house has been a disaster since it was built. It's been scaffolded and hidden under tarpaulin for almost as long as it's been up. Huge issues with it. So it's never, ever, I think, been completely finished off. And I have to say, given where we are with Baker Oats, and I do wish people would spell it correctly, but Baker Oats, which went through on appeal, is being built out, completely destroying the road, as we know, but we did warn them that that would happen with all the springs and everything else in Gardeners Hill Road. So we have, opposite this, we couldn't even say that flatted development is inappropriate in this site because, quite frankly, we've got it opposite. And it is inappropriate opposite, it's hideous. And we said in this very chamber it would be hideous because of the topography, and it is hideous. We were right, yet again, hideous, but the inspector saw it differently. So what have we got here? We've got an existing building. I love the way that garages suddenly become coach houses. I mean, when was a coach ever in that garage? It was only built in about 2009. I mean, but there we go. Coach house sounds much better than one garage muse, I suppose. The coach house has a certain ring to it. So, providing this is built, I really don't think we've got any grounds to turn it down. I think some of the accommodation doesn't quite fit standards, but then, as we're always told, we haven't actually got our standards as a policy yet, so that's not much use to us. What I did enjoy actually reading the report were the existing and proposed elevations. I thought it was like a Sunday newspaper trying to spot the difference. And, it was just one window or the odd bit of glazing. It was really quite exciting spotting it. And I'm sure some of them are identical. Please tell me they're identical. Otherwise, I failed appallingly to spot the difference. So I don't like it. Never have liked it. Don't like the site. Don't think the site should be developed. Lost the fight on that one. We've got development opposite. I really think we're going to have to go with this one. If we were starting with the site, with nothing else agreed on it, I would be fighting this tooth and nail. But given where we are, I really don't think we've got any planning grounds on which we can make a robust refusal. So, but please, 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 can we enforce our landscaping? Can we double what we say in the hope that we get half of it at least developed? Because really and truly, if they are going to leave eyesores, and I'm talking eyesores, anyone wants to drive around the Bourne, I'll drive you around and you'll spot them within 10 minutes. But at least if they were screened, we would have half a chance of forgetting that they were there. So please, whatever the landscaping is on here, can we make sure it's thoroughly enforced? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mary-Lee.
Thank you. Well, I support Carol Coburn, Councillor Coburn and all this. I live around the corner from this, so I watched this aberration continue over several years, and as she says, that building has sat wrapped up in polythene wrap for I don't know how long. what was two green sites, which are sort of buffer zones between us and Frensham, have now been sort of taken over completely. And in that site, which this particular site, you're going to have how many cars coming out of there? I don't know. You've got six, so maybe 12 at the basic 12 cars coming out that one. Then you've got another 3 big houses that she wants to develop further down, and opposite we've got Colour Homes. And I looked at my thing about planning, and it says very clearly that pollution, noise, and also ordinary pollution with car emissions is something that we should be considering as a material consideration. Plus, we have a directive down from the government saying very clearly that pollution has now got to be taken seriously, and it's not being taken seriously. What you've got is totally contradictory stuff going on. You're saying it's fine to keep on allowing more and more land to have more and more houses and more cars on it in suburban areas where there's no other way of transporting people around. And yet this is not what we're supposed to be doing. It's completely contradictory. Apart from anything else, that road, which I know very well, I go up and down it 4 times a day to get to the horses. That is a very dangerous road. At the end of the road, at the top, you've got two schools which are growing. We've got Frensham Heights and you've got Morehouse School, which are expanding. You've also got now, because of the amount of traffic we have coming through from Farnham and their inability to get to where they want to go to, this has now become the rat run to get up onto the road that will take you to Churt and all those, and to Hindhead and to the A3. So what was a very small road, a very narrow road, and when the site visit first happened all those years ago, the councillors were jumping into the hedges. Everybody recognised that it was bad. And Surrey Highways then decided to do a survey in the middle of August when nobody was there. So the road itself is going to be overwhelmed with even more traffic. It is very dangerous up there.
We've got to stick to the application in hand, not this.
Well, but you're adding to the traffic. You're adding to the traffic with even more.
Okay.
But in terms of that, I think probably Councillor Coburn is right. There's not much we can do about it, but I think it's a tragedy that this sort of stuff is allowed to go ahead when it's actually not benefiting what we're supposed to be doing, which is keeping our town for people to live properly without being damaged health-wise, and for our land to support us.
Okay. Well, all I'll say, we have to deal with this application before us, as you appreciate, and I do understand your comments. All I'll say, we've got to deal with the application as per existing planning regulations and guidelines, really, and not to go into anything. Although these may change in due course of time, of course. Yes, Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chairman. I have a copy of a letter from Transport Development Planning of part of Surrey, and it said the footway, which is planned, showing up on the screen, will maximise the opportunity for trips to be made by sustainable modes of travel. To where? The footway doesn't go anywhere. All right, we can go there, or we can use the footway to cross the road to the housing estate. Why?
I can't answer that question, Councillor Clark.
Can anybody answer the question?
No, but having said that, it's an interesting technical point, I would say. But anyway, any other? Oh, sorry. Councillor.
I'd just like to say why I won't be supporting this application, because I don't believe that the line of sight will be safe, because I don't believe that Surrey Highways will clip it and keep it back, because they just don't do it anywhere else. Thank you.
Councillor wishes to comment before me? Okay. Well, okay, Councillor Clark, yes. Well.
Yeah, just quickly, Chairman. In our document, it says, on the existing dwelling, matching materials would be used to make good the minor minor alterations that are needed. Yet in the applicant's design and access statement, it says, it is important to note that Pendragon Hall was constructed with severe defects and repairs as it stands are not considered viable for such a large house. So in fact, the desire to try to change the building into apartments is a viability. Otherwise, the applicant apparently was recommended that you should knock the whole thing down and start again.
Good comment. Yep. All right. Thank you very much for that comment. Anybody else wish to comment? Okay. We'll move on to the in line existing planning guidelines. That's subject to conditions 1 to 13 now, I suspect, actually, with additional condition. And the informative 1 to 9 permission be granted. Those in Thank you very much. I believe that's carried. Is that right, Fiona?
That's carried, yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, there being no items to get in an exempt session, that concludes this evening's meeting. Thank you very much, and time to go home, I think.